Imagine a man named Abraham, living thousands of years ago in distant lands, where the desert stretched as far as the eye could see and the stars shone like diamonds in the night sky. Abraham was known for his deep faith in God. He and his wife Sarah were righteous and God-fearing people, but they carried a sadness in their hearts. They had no children. Already advanced in age, Abraham nearly 100 years old and Sarah 90, they believed it was too late to fulfill their dream of becoming parents. One day, God spoke to Abraham in a special way. He said, "Do not fear, Abraham. I am your shield. Your reward will be very great." However, Abraham questioned, "Lord, what will you give me if I remain childless? Who will inherit all that I have will be Eliezer of Damascus, a servant in my household." But God responded firmly, "This man will not be your heir. A son born to you will be your heir." Then God took Abraham outside his tent and said, "Look up to the sky and count the stars, if you can count them. So shall your offspring be." Abraham looked up at the vast firmament, filled with countless stars, and felt the flame of hope ignite once more in his heart. He believed in God's promise, and this faith was credited to him as righteousness. Despite the divine promise, the years continued to pass, and Sarah still had not conceived. Feeling the weight of age and the pressure of time, Sarah suggested to Abraham that he have a child with her maidservant Hagar. Abraham agreed, and Hagar gave birth to Ishmael. However, God had specific plans for Abraham and Sarah. He appeared again to Abraham and said, "As for Sarah your wife, you will not call her Sarai anymore, but Sarah will be her name. I will bless her and will give you a son by her. She will become nations. Kings of peoples will come from her." Abraham, surprised, fell face down and laughed, thinking to himself, "Can a man of 100 years old bear a child? And Sarah, at 90 years old, will she give birth?" Sarah, upon hearing the same promise, also laughed inwardly, doubting that such a thing could happen. But God asked Abraham, "Why did Sarah laugh? Is anything too hard for the Lord? At the appointed time, I will return to you, and Sarah will have a son." And so, at the time God had determined, the impossible happened. Sarah conceived and gave birth to a son. Joy filled the hearts of the couple. Abraham named the boy Isaac, which means laughter, in memory of the disbelief turned into joy. Sarah said, "God has made me laugh, and everyone who hears about this will laugh with me." Who would have thought that Abraham would have a child at his old age? Yet, I have given him a son in his old age. The birth of Isaac was not just the fulfillment of a personal desire, it was the confirmation of God's covenant with Abraham. Isaac would be the heir of the divine promises, the link that would continue God's plan to form a great nation. Abraham and Sarah learned that for God, there are no limits. Their faith transcended human logic, and his promises were fulfilled in the right time. The story of Isaac teaches us about the importance of faith and patience. Even when everything seems impossible, when circumstances make us doubt, we must trust that God is capable of fulfilling what he has promised. Abraham and Sarah waited many years, faced doubts and challenges, but in the end, they saw the realization of a dream that seemed unattainable. Isaac grew up knowing he was the fruit of a miracle, the embodiment of God's promise. His life would be a living testimony of divine faithfulness, and through him, God's covenant with Abraham would continue for generations, influencing the history of humanity. If you feel motivated and inspired by this content, make sure you are subscribed to the channel so you don't miss more videos like this. We will bring a series of content with biblical teachings and inspiring stories that motivate us to continue and not give up. Let's proceed with the story. After the miraculous birth of Isaac, the joy of Abraham and Sarah seemed limitless. However, for God, this moment marked only the beginning of a grand and eternal plan. God wanted to assure Abraham that the covenant made with him was not just a temporary commitment, but a promise that would extend through countless generations. One night, under the starry sky, Abraham was contemplating the stars, remembering God's words about his descendants being as numerous as the stars in the sky. The twinkling above reflected the magnitude of the divine promise. It was in this serene setting that God revealed himself again to Abraham, reaffirming his covenant in an even deeper way. "Abraham," God began with a voice that echoed softly in the desert. "You have done well to obey me and follow the path I showed you. Now, I want you to know that my covenant with you and your descendants is eternal." Abraham, his eyes fixed on the stars, felt a deep peace flood his heart. He knew that this moment was of unparalleled importance. God continued, "Through Isaac, the son you have received in my promise, your descendants will be as numerous as the stars in the sky and as the sand on the seashore. All the families of the earth will be blessed through him." These words strengthened Abraham's faith. He understood that Isaac was not just his son, but the bearer of divine promises. Every smile, every tear, and every step Isaac took was aligned with the greater purpose that God had established. God's covenant with Abraham was sealed with symbolic gestures that deeply resonated in both their lives. God commanded Abraham to build an altar at the place where he had previously appeared. Under the starry sky, Abraham erected stones, each representing a renewed commitment. By placing Isaac on the altar, he symbolized his total trust in God's promises. "Isaac," Abraham said with an emotional voice, "you are the light that will continue to shine through our lineage. With you, God's covenant will endure, ensuring that our promises are not forgotten." Isaac, still young, felt the importance of his role. He was not only Abraham's heir but also the living symbol of God's faithfulness. Every act of love and obedience Isaac demonstrated reflected the continuation of the divine covenant. As the years passed, Isaac's life was marked by events that reinforced this covenant. From his childhood, he showed a kind nature and unwavering obedience, traits that Abraham had taught him with patience and faith. Through Isaac, God's promises began to manifest in tangible ways, confirming that the covenant was real and powerful. God also ensured that the promised land would be inherited by Isaac, just as a prosperous nation would arise from his descendants. The promises of abundance, protection, and blessing were not only for Abraham but for all his future, ensuring that faith and trust in God would be passed down from generation to generation. In moments of challenge, such as when Abraham had to trust God to nearly sacrifice Isaac, the covenant proved unbreakable. God intervened at the last moment, sparing Isaac and reinforcing that life and faith were precious. This act of mercy not only saved Isaac, but also solidified the certainty that God would always fulfill his promises. God's covenant with Abraham, confirmed through Isaac, was a promise of continuity, faith, and abundance. Isaac became the vital link connecting Abraham's past with the promising future God had prepared. His life was a living testimony of God's faithfulness, and through him, the great nation of Israel began to take shape, destined to influence history in a profound and lasting way. This story reminds us that God's promises are steadfast and that even when we face doubts and challenges, his faithfulness remains unshakable. Isaac, as the heir of divine promises, symbolizes hope and the continuity of the covenant, showing that through faith and trust in God, all promises can be fulfilled in a wonderful and surprising manner. Isaac, whose name means laughter, grew up in a family deeply connected with God. From the early years of his life, he was surrounded by the love and guidance of his parents, Abraham and Sarah. The joy his birth brought did not fade with time. On the contrary, it strengthened family bonds and the faith that united everyone in their home. Abraham, a man known for his unwavering faith, took on the responsibility of teaching Isaac about the God who fulfills promises. On quiet desert nights, around the campfire, Abraham shared stories of his experiences with God. He told Isaac about how God called him to leave his homeland and promised him numerous descendants. Isaac listened attentively, his eyes shining with admiration and respect for his father. "Son," Abraham would say, with a soft but firm voice, "always remember that God is faithful. He guides us, protects us, and fulfills what he promises. Our family is living proof of that." Sarah, for her part, devoted herself to caring for Isaac with love and dedication. She taught him about the importance of hospitality, kindness, and obedience. Together, they cultivated an environment of love and respect, where God's presence was felt in every gesture and word. Sarah shared with Isaac the wonder of his birth, how he was a divine gift in her old age. "You are our miracle," she said, stroking his hair. "Never forget how much God loves us." As Isaac grew, he accompanied Abraham in his daily tasks. He learned about caring for the flocks, managing the household, and most importantly, the importance of building altars and offering sacrifices to God. At each altar erected, there was a lesson about gratitude and devotion. Isaac watched the rituals closely, understanding that each act had a profound meaning in his relationship with the divine. A significant episode in Isaac's life was when Abraham took him to Mount Moriah. Although this event is associated with a test of faith for Abraham, it was also a moment of deep impact for Isaac. The trust they both had in God was strengthened, and Isaac further understood the seriousness of the obedience and faith taught by his father. Back in family life, Isaac continued to absorb the values transmitted by Abraham and Sarah. He learned about justice, compassion, and the importance of keeping one's word. Abraham's stories about his interactions with kings and neighboring peoples taught Isaac about integrity and courage. Moreover, Isaac witnessed his parents' hospitality. Abraham and Sarah's home was always open to visitors and travelers. They offered water, food, and rest to everyone passing by. Isaac saw how his parents treated strangers with respect and generosity, understanding that this was a reflection of God's love for humanity. Faith was the foundation of the family. Daily, they prayed together, thanking God for the blessings received and seeking guidance for the future. Isaac learned the importance of prayer and meditation, developing a personal relationship with God. This spiritual connection would accompany him throughout his life, guiding his decisions and actions. When Sarah passed away, Isaac was approximately 37 years old. The loss of his mother was a difficult moment, but also an occasion to reaffirm his faith. Abraham consoled his son, reminding him of God's promises and the certainty that Sarah was now at peace. Together, they honored her memory, keeping alive the teachings and love she had shared. Isaac became a man who mirrored Abraham's wisdom and faith. His family life had been a fertile ground where seeds of faith, obedience, and love for God were planted and nurtured. He carried with him not only his parents' genetic heritage, but more importantly, the spiritual inheritance that would shape his character and future actions. Close companionship with Abraham allowed Isaac to deeply understand the meaning of God's covenant with his family. He knew he had an important role in the continuity of divine promises. This awareness motivated him to live with integrity and dedication, following in his father's footsteps and honoring God in all areas of his life. Isaac grew not only in stature, but also in wisdom and grace before God and men. His solid and faith-based family life served as a foundation for the future challenges he would face. The values taught by Abraham and Sarah remained with him, guiding and strengthening him throughout his journey. Thus, Isaac's growth and his family life represent a crucial stage in the history of God's covenant with humanity. Through his parents' education and examples, Isaac became a vital link in the chain of faith that would extend through generations. His story shows us the importance of family as an environment for learning and spiritual strengthening, where values and faith are transmitted and perpetuated. Do you feel any similarity between the moment you are living and the story told? Do you feel you are experiencing something similar? Tell us how you feel. If you need a prayer or help, share a story of overcoming to inspire us and give us strength to not give up. Comment if you want to help someone or need help. As the years passed, Abraham grew old and realized it was time for his son Isaac to start a family. Abraham knew that choosing a wife for Isaac was crucial for the continuation of God's promises. He desired that his son marry someone who shared the same values and faith, someone who could walk alongside Isaac on the journey God had charted for them. Determined to find the ideal wife for his son, Abraham called his most trusted servant, a wise and experienced man who had faithfully served for many years. Some believe this servant was Eliezer. Abraham said to him, "Put your hand under my thigh and swear by the Lord, the God of heaven and earth, that you will not take a wife for my son from the daughters of the Canaanites among whom I live. Instead, you will go to my land and my relatives, and from there you will take a wife for Isaac." The servant understood the importance of this mission. He was to travel to Abraham's homeland and find a wife for Isaac among his master's relatives. It was a task of great responsibility, as the future of the lineage God had promised to bless depended on it. Preparing for the journey, the servant gathered 10 camels loaded with valuable gifts, jewelry, fine clothes, and other treasures. These presents would be signs of respect and goodwill to the family of the future bride. With a heart full of determination and a silent prayer, he set out for the city of Nahor in Mesopotamia. After many days of traveling through the desert, the servant finally arrived near the city. It was late afternoon, the time when women went out to draw water from the well. Tired but aware of the importance of the moment, he decided to stop near the city's well. Then, in a gesture of faith, he prayed to the Lord, "O Lord, God of my master Abraham, please grant me success today and show kindness to my master Abraham. I am standing beside the spring, and the daughters of the men of the city are coming out to draw water. Let the young woman to whom I say, 'Please let me drink some water,' and she replies, 'Drink, and I will also give your camels a drink. Let her be the one you have chosen for your servant Isaac.'" As he finished praying, Rebekah appeared, a very beautiful young woman, daughter of Bethuel, son of Milcah and Nahor, Abraham's brother. Rebekah was carrying a water jar on her shoulder and was descending to the spring to fill the vessel. The servant watched her movements carefully, noting her grace and diligence. Approaching her, he said, "Please, let me drink some water from your jar." Rebekah replied with a gentle smile, "Drink, my lord," and quickly lowered the jar so he could drink. After quenching the man's thirst, she added, "I will draw water for your camels as well until they are satisfied." She ran back to the well and filled the jar several times, pouring water into the trough until all the camels had enough to drink. The servant, amazed by Rebekah's generosity and promptness, remained silent, reflecting on whether she would be the one chosen by God for Isaac. When the camels finished drinking, he took an ivory ring and bracelets and gave them to Rebekah, asking, "Whose daughter are you? Please tell me, is there room in your father's house for us to spend the night?" Rebekah replied, "I am the daughter of Bethuel, son of Milcah with Nahor." And she added, "We have plenty of straw and fodder, and there is also room for you to spend the night." The servant then prostrated himself and worshipped the Lord, saying, "Blessed be the Lord, the God of my master Abraham, who has not refused his kindness and faithfulness to my master. As for me, the Lord has led me on the journey to the house of my master's relatives." Rebekah hurried home and told her family about the encounter. Her brother Laban, upon seeing the gifts and hearing Rebekah's words, went out to meet the servant. Laban said, "Come in, blessed by the Lord. Why are you out here? I have already prepared the house and the place for the camels." The servant entered the house, and after taking care of the animals, refused to eat until he could recount his mission. He detailed everything that had happened, from Abraham's instructions to the providential meeting with Rebekah. Bethuel and Laban listened attentively. In the end they said, "This is from the Lord. We cannot say anything either good or bad. Here is Rebekah. Take her and let her become the wife of your master's son, as the Lord has determined." The next day, the servant prepared to depart, but the family asked Rebekah to stay with them for a few more days. The servant insisted that he needed to return immediately. So they decided to call Rebekah and ask her, "Will you go with this man?" And she promptly replied, "I will go." With her family's blessing, who said, "May you, our sister, become the mother of thousands and thousands, and may your descendants conquer the cities of your enemies," Rebekah set out with Abraham's servant. The return journey was long, but Rebekah was filled with anticipation about the future that awaited her. Meanwhile, Isaac was in the field, meditating at sunset. When he looked up, he saw the camels approaching from afar. Rebekah also looked up and upon seeing Isaac, got off the camel and asked the servant, "Who is that man walking in the field to meet us?" The servant replied, "He is my master." Then, she covered herself with a veil as a sign of respect. The servant told Isaac everything he had done. Isaac took Rebekah to the tent that had belonged to his mother, Sarah, and took her as his wife. He loved her deeply, and this love brought him comfort after the loss of his mother. The marriage of Isaac and Rebekah was blessed by God, marking the beginning of a new generation that would continue to fulfill the divine promises made to Abraham. Rebekah proved to be a virtuous, kind, and faithful wife. Her presence strengthened Isaac's faith and consolidated the lineage chosen by God. Together, they would face challenges and joys, always guided by the divine hand that had united them in such a special way. The story of Isaac and Rebekah's marriage teaches us about the importance of trusting in God and seeking values that transcend appearances. Rebekah's kindness, hospitality, and faith not only won Isaac's heart but also fulfilled God's purpose in forming a people destined to be a great nation. It is a reminder that when we place our decisions in God's hands, He guides our steps in a perfect and blessed manner. After Isaac and Rebekah's blessed marriage, the expectation of forming a family filled the hearts of the young couple. Just like their parents before them, they longed to have children to continue the lineage that God had promised to bless. However, the years passed, and Rebekah could not conceive. Infertility became a heavy burden, bringing sadness and uncertainty to the home. Isaac, remembering the difficulties his own parents faced, did not lose hope. Instead, he decided to seek God with even greater fervor. He prayed persistently to the Lord on behalf of Rebekah, saying, "O God of my father Abraham, you who have fulfilled your promises, I pray that you bless my wife with a gift of motherhood, so that your plan may be fulfilled through our family." God heard Isaac's pleas. Rebekah finally felt life blossoming within her. Joy flooded the couple, and hope was renewed. However, the pregnancy brought unexpected challenges. Rebekah felt that the babies were struggling in her womb, causing her great discomfort. Worried about what this might mean, she sought the Lord in prayer. "Why is this happening to me?" The Lord responded to Rebekah with a profound message. "Two nations are in your womb. Two peoples will be separated from your body. One people will be stronger than the other, and the older will serve the younger." These words revealed that not only would she have children, but these children would be the progenitors of distinct nations, with destinies that would impact history. The time for childbirth arrived, and Rebekah gave birth to twins. The first to be born was red and covered with hair, looking like a hairy cloak. Therefore he was named Esau, which means hairy. Shortly after, his brother was born, with his hand holding onto Esau's heel. He was called Jacob, which means he who grasps the heel or supplanter. From an early age, it became evident that Esau and Jacob were very different. Esau grew up to be a skilled hunter, a man of the field. He loved adventure, the freedom of open spaces, and the thrill of the hunt. His personality was impulsive and immediate, valuing the present and immediate satisfactions. Isaac, appreciating the hunts that his son brought him and perhaps seeing in him a reflection of his own youth, had a preference for Esau. Jacob, on the other hand, was a quiet man who preferred staying in the tents. He was introspective, strategic, and valued family traditions and responsibilities. He spent much time alongside Rebekah, learning about managing the household and listening to stories of God's promises to his family. Rebekah felt a special connection with Jacob, perhaps recognizing in him a spirit that valued God's things. The distinct personalities of the brothers were not just differences in temperament, they foreshadowed future challenges that would affect the entire family. The prophecy that the older would serve the younger was contrary to the cultural norms of the time, where the firstborn had special rights and privileges. This inversion of roles would be a source of tension and conflict. A significant episode illustrating these differences occurred when Esau returned exhausted from the field. Finding Jacob preparing a red and aromatic stew, Esau said, "Let me eat some of that red stew, for I am famished." Jacob, seeing an opportunity, replied, "First sell me your birthright." Esau, without considering the consequences, said, "I am about to die. What good is the birthright to me?" So he swore and sold his birthright to Jacob for a simple bowl of lentils. This impulsive act by Esau revealed his disregard for the responsibilities and blessings that accompanied the birthright. Jacob, though cunning, showed how much he valued God's promises and his family's legacy. This event would be a turning point, deeply influencing the future of both brothers and the nations that would arise from them. Rebekah and Isaac, each with their preferences for one of the sons, faced the challenge of dealing with the growing rivalry between them. Rebekah remembered the prophecy from God and perhaps perceived that Jacob was the chosen one to continue the lineage of divine promises. Isaac, on the other hand, seemed more inclined to follow tradition, favoring Esau as the firstborn. Family life became a stage where the differences were accentuated. Esau married Hittite women, which brought bitterness to Isaac and Rebekah, as these women did not share the same faith and values. Jacob remained at home, deepening his knowledge and strengthening his relationship with God. The story of the birth of Esau and Jacob and their contrasting personalities teaches us about the sovereignty of God and how his plans often defy human expectations. Even before they were born, God had determined the roles each would play. The choices they made throughout life served to fulfill divine purposes, even amidst human conflicts and imperfections. Through Jacob, God's covenant with Abraham and Isaac would be continued. He would become the patriarch of a great nation, Israel, and its 12 tribes. Jacob's journey would be filled with challenges, divine encounters, and personal transformations that would shape not only his character but also the destiny of his people. The narrative of Esau and Jacob's birth and growth highlights the importance of valuing the blessings and responsibilities that God grants us. While Esau despised his birthright for a momentary desire, Jacob actively sought the divine promises, even if his methods were not always the most righteous. Furthermore, the story emphasizes the power of prayer and faith. Rebekah, who faced infertility, found in God the answer to her dilemma. Her quest for understanding during the tumultuous pregnancy shows that in times of uncertainty, we can find guidance and comfort in God. In summary, the birth of Esau and Jacob marks a crucial chapter in the continuity of the heritage promised by God. Their lives, filled with lessons and profound meanings, continue to teach us about faith, choices, and the fulfillment of divine purposes amid the complexities of human experience. Leave a like if you are enjoying this, so YouTube continues to recommend videos like this and helps us and motivates us to continue. We thank you for every second, and may God bless you. Isaac had grown old. His eyes, once full of vigor, were now clouded by the blindness of advanced age. Feeling that his days on earth were drawing to a close, he decided it was time to bless his firstborn son, Esau. This blessing was not just a family tradition, it was the transmission of divine promises given to Abraham and later to Isaac. Whoever received this blessing would be the heir of God's promises, the family leader, and the continuator of the sacred covenant. Esau, the eldest son, was a skilled hunter, a man of the field who loved the freedom of the hills and forests. Jacob, the younger, preferred the tranquility of the tents, dedicating himself to household chores and caring for the flocks. Although twins, the brothers could not be more different, both in appearance and temperament. Isaac had a preference for Esau, while Rebekah favored Jacob. One day, Isaac called Esau and said, "My son, I am old and do not know the day of my death. Now take your weapons, your quiver and your bow, go out to the field and hunt me some game. Prepare me a tasty meal as I enjoy, and bring it to me so that I may eat it and bless you before I die." Rebekah, overhearing this conversation, remembered the prophecy she had received during her pregnancy, that the older would serve the younger. Convinced that Jacob should receive the blessing, she devised a plan to ensure this would happen. She called Jacob in secret and said, "I heard your father talking with your brother Esau. Now my son, listen to me. Go to the flock and bring me 2 choice young goats. I will prepare a tasty meal for your father, just as he likes. You shall bring it to your father so that he may eat it and bless you before he dies." Jacob, worried, replied, "But mother, my brother Esau is hairy, and I have smooth skin. If my father touches me, he will realize I am an impostor and will bring a curse on me instead of a blessing." Rebekah assured him, "May the curse fall upon me, my son. Just do as I tell you and bring me the goats." Jacob followed his mother's instructions. Rebekah prepared a delicious meal exactly as Isaac liked. Then, she took the best clothes of Esau and dressed Jacob in them. With the skins of the goats, she covered Jacob's hands and neck to imitate Esau's rough skin. She handed him the meal and the bread she had prepared. With his heart pounding, Jacob approached his father's tent. "My father," he called. Isaac replied, "Here I am." "Who are you, my son?" Jacob said, "I am Esau, your firstborn. I have done as you asked. Now please arise, sit and eat some of my game, that you may bless me." Isaac, suspicious, asked, "How did you find the game so quickly, my son?" Jacob replied, "Because the Lord your God has blessed me." Still not fully convinced, Isaac said, "Come near to me so that I may touch you and see whether you are really my son Esau or not." Jacob came near, and Isaac touched him. Feeling the skins on his hands and neck, Isaac remarked, "The voice is Jacob's, but the hands are Esau's." After eating and drinking, Isaac said, "Come near and kiss me, my son." When Jacob kissed him, Isaac smelled the clothes of Esau and was finally convinced. He pronounced the blessing. "Ah, the smell of my son is like the smell of the field that the Lord has blessed. May God give you the dew of heaven and the riches of the earth, grain and new wine. May people serve you and nations bow down to you. Be lord over your brothers, and may the sons of your mother bow down to you. Cursed be everyone who curses you, and blessed be everyone who blesses you." Just as Jacob had left his father's presence, Esau returned from hunting. He prepared a tasty meal and, full of expectation, entered Isaac's tent, saying, "Please arise, my father, and eat some of the game your son has hunted, that you may bless me." Isaac, surprised and confused, asked, "Who are you?" Esau replied, "I am your son, your firstborn, Esau." Isaac trembled violently and said, "Then who hunted and brought me the game? I ate everything before you came and blessed him, and he shall be blessed." Hearing this, Esau let out a bitter cry and lamented, "Please bless me, my father." Isaac explained that he had already given the blessing to Jacob. Esau pleaded, "Did you not reserve any blessing for me?" Isaac responded, "I have made him lord over you and over all his brothers. I have given him servants and have provided for him with grain and wine. What can I do for you now, my son?" Esau, with a broken heart, cried and insisted, "Do you not have at least one blessing for me?" Isaac then said, "Your dwelling will be away from the richness of the land and without the dew from heaven. You will live by your sword and serve your brother. But when you become restless, you will break the yoke from your neck." From that moment, Esau harbored deep resentment against Jacob. He thought to himself, "The days of mourning for my father are near, then I will kill my brother Jacob." Rebekah, upon hearing of Esau's intentions, warned Jacob, "Your brother Esau is planning to kill you. Now, my son, listen to me. Flee to the house of my brother Laban in Haran. Stay with him for a while until your brother's fury subsides. When he forgets what you have done, I will send for you." Thus, Jacob set out, beginning a journey that would lead him to transformative encounters and profound experiences with God. Although he obtained the blessing through deceitful means, divine sovereignty used this situation to fulfill his purposes. Jacob would become Israel, the father of the 12 tribes, and through him, God's covenant would continue. This story teaches us about the complexities of human nature, the consequences of our actions, and the sovereignty of God that operates even amidst human imperfections. Isaac, despite his physical blindness and perhaps spiritual blindness, transmitted blessings that would shape the future of entire nations. Rebekah, moved by the prophecy, acted to ensure Jacob received the blessing, though the methods used caused painful conflicts. Isaac's blessing on Jacob ensured the continuity of God's covenant. It shows us that even when paths are crooked, God is capable of accomplishing his purposes. The story also warns us about the dangers of favoritism and dishonesty, which can sow discord and suffering. In the end, the narrative of Isaac's blessings on Jacob and Esau invites reflection on faith, family, and how our choices affect not only our destiny but also that of future generations. It is a powerful reminder that God remains faithful to his promises, even when we fail, and that his grace can transform our mistakes into part of the greater plan for humanity. In a distant time, on the vast plains of Canaan, lived a man named Abraham. Known for his unwavering faith and close relationship with God, Abraham had first-hand experience of divine wonders and promises. He and his wife Sarah had waited for decades for the fulfillment of the promise of a son, and finally, in their old age, Isaac was born. The boy was the joy of their lives, the embodiment of God's promises, and the hope for future generations. Isaac grew strong and healthy, bringing smiles and laughter to Abraham's home. Each day with him was a reminder of God's faithfulness. However, amidst this happiness, God decided to test Abraham's faith in a profound and incomprehensible way. One day, God called out to Abraham, "Abraham." And he promptly responded, "Here I am." Then God said something that must have made Abraham's heart tremble. "Take now your son, your only son Isaac, whom you love, and go to the land of Moriah. Offer him there as a burnt offering on one of the mountains I will tell you about." Abraham's mind was likely flooded with a torrent of emotions and questions. How could God ask for something so painful? Wasn't Isaac the son of the promise? However, Abraham's trust in God was so deep that he did not hesitate. He knew that somehow, God had a greater purpose, even if he could not understand it at that moment. At dawn, Abraham rose early. He prepared his donkey, called 2 of his servants, and with Isaac, cut the wood for the burnt offering. In silence and determination, they began the journey toward the place God had indicated. For 3 days, they walked through the mountainous landscapes, each step laden with emotional weight. On the 3rd day, Abraham lifted his eyes and saw the designated place in the distance. Turning to his servants, he said, "Stay here with the donkey. Me and the boy will go over there. We will worship, and then we will return to you." These words carried silent hope, perhaps an indication of Abraham's faith that, somehow, both would return. Abraham took the wood for the burnt offering and placed it on Isaac's shoulders. He himself carried the fire and the knife. As they walked together, the silence was broken by Isaac's innocent voice, "Father." Abraham replied, "Here I am, my son." Isaac continued, "The fire and the wood are here, but where is the lamb for the burnt offering?" This question must have pierced Abraham's heart, but with calmness and faith, he responded, "God will provide for himself the lamb for the burnt offering, my son." And they continued together. Arriving at the place God had indicated, Abraham built an altar. Stone upon stone, he erected the structure, each movement filled with solemnity. He arranged the wood on the altar and then turned to Isaac. With tenderness and perhaps tears in his eyes, he explained to Isaac what God had commanded. Isaac, raised in a home of faith and obedience, did not resist. He trusted his father and God. Abraham bound Isaac and placed him on the altar, on top of the wood. With a steady hand, he took the knife, ready to sacrifice his beloved son. At that critical moment, an angel of the Lord called from heaven, "Abraham, Abraham." He replied immediately, "Here I am." The angel said, "Do not lay a hand on the boy or do anything to him. Now I know that you fear God, because you have not withheld your son, your only son, from me." Relief and gratitude flooded Abraham. Looking around, he saw a ram caught by its horns in a bush. Abraham went over, took the animal, and offered it as a sacrifice in place of his son. With a heart overflowing with emotion, he named that place "The Lord Will Provide," for their God indeed provided the necessary sacrifice. The angel of the Lord called Abraham a second time and said, "I swear by myself, declares the Lord, that because you have done this and have not withheld your son, your only son, I will surely bless you and make your descendants as numerous as the stars in the sky and as the sand on the seashore. Your descendants will take possession of the cities of their enemies. Through them all nations on earth will be blessed, because you have obeyed my voice." Abraham and Isaac descended from the mountain together. This experience profoundly transformed both of them. Abraham's faith was confirmed and strengthened. Isaac witnessed the depth of his father's obedience and God's provision in critical moments. The relationship between father and son was enriched by a mutual understanding of the importance of trusting God. This story has been told for generations as a powerful example of faith and obedience. Abraham demonstrated that his trust in God was above all else, even when faced with the loss of what he loved most. God, in turn, showed that he does not desire human sacrifices, but rather faithfulness and a willing heart to obey. The almost sacrifice of Isaac not only tested Abraham's faith, but also served as a foreshadowing of what would become the ultimate sacrifice in the distant future, where God would not spare his own son for the redemption of humanity. For us, this story reinforces the idea that true faith often requires trust beyond human understanding. In times of trial, when everything seems at stake, remembering that God is faithful and that his plans are greater than we can comprehend can give us the strength to carry on. The story of Abraham and Isaac on Mount Moriah remains an eternal testimony of trust in God and the importance of obeying his will, even when it defies our logic and feelings. It invites us to reflect on what we are willing to surrender in our own faith journey and how we can trust that, at the right moment, the Lord will provide. Isaac, the son of Abraham and Sarah, lived a long and fulfilling life, marked by faithfulness to God and the fulfillment of divine promises. From his miraculous birth to his final days, his existence was a living testimony of the covenant God established with his family. As the years passed, Isaac watched his sons grow and follow different paths. Jacob, after a journey full of challenges and encounters with the divine, returned with a large family and wealth. Esau, in turn, settled in another region, becoming the founder of his own nation. Despite past differences and conflicts, family bonds remained present in Isaac's heart. In his advanced age, at 180 years old, Isaac felt that his days on earth were nearing their end. His vision had weakened, and his steps were no longer as firm as before. However, his mind remained clear, and his heart at peace. He spent his days reminiscing about his life's experiences, God's promises, and the lessons he had learned along the way. Isaac often gathered with his grandchildren, sharing stories of faith and courage. Sitting under the shade of the tents, with a golden sunset illuminating the desert, he recounted how God had guided his family since Abraham's time. "Always remember," he would say, with a soft yet authoritative voice, "that we are part of an eternal covenant with the Most High God. His promises are true, and his faithfulness endures forever." He recalled the day he was almost sacrificed by his father Abraham, not with bitterness, but with gratitude for having witnessed his father's deep obedience and unwavering faith. "That day," he explained, "I learned that we must trust God above all, even when we do not understand his ways. And God provided, as he always does." Isaac also shared stories about his marriage to Rebekah, a blessed union that brought joy and continuity to the lineage. He spoke fondly of the challenges they faced together, especially during the years of infertility, and how God heard their prayers, granting them the twins Esau and Jacob. In moments of quiet, Isaac meditated on the complex relationship between his sons. Although he knew of the conflicts and difficult choices they had made, he believed in reconciliation and God's greater purpose. He prayed for peace to prevail between them and that the divine covenant would continue through their generations. One day, feeling especially weak, Isaac called Jacob, who is now known as Israel, a name given by God after a night of struggle and transformation. Jacob approached his father with respect and affection. Isaac, holding his son's hand, said, "My son, I see that God has been with you. His promises are being fulfilled, and through you, nations will be born. Remain faithful to the Lord, and he will guide your steps." Jacob, moved, replied, "My father, all that I am and all that I have is thanks to God's grace and the teachings I received from you. I promise to honor our God and continue the legacy entrusted to me." Isaac smiled, satisfied. He knew that God's covenant was secure in Jacob and his descendants. With a peaceful heart, he rested, surrounded by the love of his family. Shortly after, Isaac passed away peacefully, leaving behind an immeasurable legacy. His sons, Jacob and Esau, gathered to honor their father's memory. Together, they buried him in the cave of Machpelah, alongside Abraham and Sarah, their parents, and Rebekah, his beloved wife. This gesture of unity between the brothers symbolized the continuity of the family and the hope for reconciliation. Isaac's death was not the end, but the beginning of a new chapter in the history of God's people. His legacy endured through Jacob, whose 12 sons became the patriarchs of the 12 tribes of Israel. The promises made by God to Abraham and reaffirmed to Isaac continued to be fulfilled, generation after generation. Isaac's teachings on faithfulness, obedience, and trust in God were passed down. His story served as inspiration for his descendants to remain steadfast in adversity, always remembering the eternal covenant established with the Lord. Isaac's life teaches us that even in the face of challenges and uncertainties, faithfulness to God is rewarded. His journey was marked by moments of testing, but also by abundant blessings. Isaac demonstrated that true inheritance lies not only in material possessions, but in the faith and values we pass on to those who come after us. Isaac's legacy is a testament to God's faithfulness to his promises. It reminds us that we are part of a greater story that transcends time and circumstances. The divine covenant, assured through Isaac and his descendants, continues to impact lives and fulfill purposes to this day. Thus, Isaac's story does not end with a farewell, but with the certainty that faith and obedience have the power to transform generations. His example remains alive, inspiring us to trust in God and persevere in His ways, knowing that He is faithful to fulfill all that He has promised. The story of Isaac is a profound journey of faith, obedience, and unwavering trust in God. From his miraculous birth to the continuation of the divine covenant through his sons, Isaac represents the embodiment of God's promises and the importance of living a life dedicated to divine purpose. Isaac was born as the fulfillment of a promise that seemed impossible to human eyes. His parents, Abraham and Sarah, already advanced in age, learned that for God, there are no limits. This beginning of life teaches us that no matter how unlikely the circumstances, God is capable of fulfilling what He promises when we place our faith in Him. Throughout his life, Isaac demonstrated obedience and submission to God's will. The episode on Mount Moriah, where he was almost sacrificed by his father, is a powerful example of absolute trust from both Abraham and Isaac. They show us that true faith involves trusting God even when we do not understand His plans, believing that He will always provide. Isaac also teaches us about the importance of family and the transmission of values. Under his parents' guidance, he grew up in an environment of faith and faithfulness. His marriage to Rebekah, a woman of virtuous character, reinforces the relevance of choosing relationships that strengthen our spiritual walk. Together, they faced challenges, such as infertility, but found in God the solution and hope. The story of his sons, Esau and Jacob, illustrates the complexities of family relationships and the consequences of our choices. Even in the face of conflicts and mistakes, God's sovereignty prevails, fulfilling His purposes through imperfect people. This encourages us to believe that regardless of our failures, God can transform our lives and use our experiences for a greater good. Isaac's life is an invitation to reflect on our own faith journey. He inspires us to trust God in all circumstances, to be obedient to His will, and to value the blessings and responsibilities He grants us. He also reminds us of the importance of leaving a legacy of faith for future generations, teaching them to love and follow God wholeheartedly. May Isaac's story motivate each of us to deepen our relationship with God. May we, like Isaac, be living testimonies of divine faithfulness, living in a way that our lives reflect the greatness of God's promises. And as we face life's challenges, may we always remember that for God, nothing is impossible and that His promises are true and eternal. Thus, as we look to Isaac's story, we are encouraged to live with faith, hope, and love, trusting that God is in control and that He fulfills all His promises. May we embrace this legacy and allow it to transform our lives and the lives of those around us. Thank you for watching up to here, and don't forget to subscribe and activate the notification bell to see more content like this and stories of overcoming, motivation, and interest. Until next time.